So let's start. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki यं प्रावृजेतमनुपेतमपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरहकातर आजु आवा पुत्रेति तन्मयतयो तरवो विनेदुस्तं सर्वभूतहृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि. So let's chant the verse. Sarahasyoधनुर्वेदः सविसर्गोपसंयमः अस्त्रग्रामश्च भवता शिक्षितो यदनुग्रहात्. सरहस्योधनुर्वेदः सविसर्गोपसंयमः अस्त्रग्रामश्च भवता शिक्षितो यदनुग्रहात्. सरहस्योधनुर्वेदः सविसर्गोपसंयमः अस्त्रग्रामश्च भवता शिक्षितो यदनुग्रहात्. Word by word translation. Rahasya, confidential. Dhanu, Vedaha, knowledge in the art of manipulating bows and arrows. Savisarga, releasing. Upasayamaha, controlling. Astra, weapons. Gramaha, all kinds of. Cha, and. Bhavata, by yourself. Shikshitaha, learned. Yat, by those. Anugrahat, mercy of. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Charanarvinda Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. It was by Dronacharya's mercy that you learned the military art of throwing arrows and the confidential art of controlling weapons. Purport. Dhanurved, or military science, was taught by Dronacharya with all its confidential secrets of throwing and controlling by Vedic hymns. Gross military science is dependent on material weapons, but finer than that is the art of throwing the arrows saturated with Vedic hymns, which act more effectively than gross material weapons like machine guns or atomic bombs. The control is by Vedic mantras, or the transcendental science of sound. It is said in the Ramayana that Maharaj Dashrath, the father of Lord Ram, used to control arrows by sound only. He could pierce his target with his arrow by only hearing the sound, without seeing the object. So, this is the finer military science than that of the gross material military weapons used nowadays. Arjun was taught all this, and therefore Draupadi wished that Arjun feel obliged to Acharya Drona for all these benefits, and in the absence of Dronacharya, his son was his representative. That was the opinion of the good lady Draupadi. It may be argued why Dronacharya, a rigid Brahman, should be a teacher in the military science, but the reply is that the Brahman should become a teacher regardless of what his department of knowledge is. A learned Brahman should become a teacher, a priest, and a recipient of charity. A bona fide Brahman is authorized to accept such professions. Joy. So let's chant our Mangala Charana and then we will start our discussions. Om Ajnantimirandasya Jnananjana Chakshuronmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tvam Sajivam Sa Advaitam Sa Avadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhamvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kant Radha Kant Namostute तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी ऋषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये पंचकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नम ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन् इति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवास आदि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे राम 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 हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे राम राम हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे राम राम हरे यन्तः प्रविश्य मम वाचमिमां प्रसूप्तां सञ्जीवयत्य अखिलशक्तिधरस्वधाम्ना अन्यांश्च हस्तचरणश्रवणात्मकादीन् प्राणान्नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यम् मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरो दीनतारिणं श्रीचैतन्येश्वरं परमानन्दमाधवम् अजानुलम्बितभुजौ कनकावधातो सङ्कीर्तनैकपितरौ कमलायताक्षौ विश्वम्भरौ द्विजभरौ युगधर्मपालौ वन्दे जगत्प्रियकरौ करुणावतारौ. So, thank you everybody for joining today's class, our discussion. Let's read the verse again. सरहस्योधनुर्वेदः सविसर्गोपसंयमः अस्त्रग्रामश्च भवता शिक्षितो यदनुग्रहात्. It was by Dronacharya's mercy that you learned the military art of throwing arrows and the confidential art of controlling weapons. We'll just go through the translation of the previous couple of verses. Sri Suta Goswami said, Draupadi then saw Ashwatthama, who was bound with ropes like an animal and silent for having enacted the most inglorious murder. Due to her female nature and due to her being naturally good and well behaved, she showed him due respects as a Brahman. She could not tolerate Ashwatthama's being bound by ropes and being a devoted lady. She said, release him, for he is a Brahman, our spiritual master. And then comes today's verse. It was by Dronacharya's mercy that you learned the military art of throwing arrows and the confidential art of controlling weapons. So, what we see here, what's the takeaway, is the refined quality of the devotee, Draupadi. Such an incredibly refined personality she is. She has expressed her emotions. Obviously, a mother who has lost her 5 young, very glorious, wonderful sons, and she's in an extreme sadness, but still she hasn't lost her composure. She hasn't lost her basic principles, ethics, morals. Everything is perfect, and that's why she could think perfectly, even in this such a horrible situation that her sons are killed by this because of this heinous crime, and still she's giving due respect because he's a son of Dronacharya, Brahman. Who is Dronacharya? Dronacharya was a disciple of Parshuram, and Parshuram, we all know, 21 times he just killed all the Kshatriyas because they were not following the duties properly. So once he just killed all the Kshatriyas, but their wives gave birth to the sons, and as they grew up, and again he killed all of them just single-handedly with his axe, Parshu, and with the axe, and that's why his name is Parshuram. So his His disciple, Parshuram we in our Dasha avatar, he's one of the avatars. There are different categories or varieties of avatar. So one is a direct avatarana. Tarana means, the literal meaning of tarana in Sanskrit means float. Ava means coming down. So floating down. So if somebody is coming down, it's very by their own will they're floating down. That is avatarana. Like somebody swimmer, the act of swimming is called jalatarana. Jala means water. Tarana means to swim. So avatarana. So avatar. The Parshuram is a Jivatma, but he is especially empowered with a power called Dushta Damana Shakti. The wicked people who were there at that time, they need to be killed. And to teach the lesson to the whole world, that's why he appeared. And uh, and that and we all know the story about his mother and then Jamadagni and everything. So we won't. It will be a diversion. We won't go into that. But that is the Parshuram's personality, and he was always in a mountain. He used to perform his austerities, and he, any sincere disciple who went to him, he used to accept uh, that disciple and give all the knowledge of Dhanurved. I think we have already discussed about the four Mukhya Ved, and then there are many Upavedas. So Mukhya Ved are Rigved, Yajurved, Samved, and Atharvaved. And then the Upavedas are many, which are basically to how to acquire the different types of knowledge required according to your Varnashram Dharma. So Dhanurved is the act of weaponry, the science, the military act. Sankhya Ved is the art of mathematics. Gandharva Ved is the art of singing. And then Ayurved, we all know, is how to maintain your body properly. So there are many Vedas like this. Sthapatya Ved, for example, is a Ved which is related to the construction, how to Ved of architecture or civil engineering. Everything is there in the Sthapatya Ved. And till few hundred years back, the lot of literature from Sthapatya Ved, Ayurveda was very much there. Not in complete sense, but it was there. And then people followed that Vedic knowledge, and they built the temples, and we can see that the beautiful temples in India right now, especially in southern part of India. Those are the masterpiece of architecture and civil engineering. Even if we try to make the replica of that temple with all the engineering skills we have, a lot of people have tried and they couldn't. For example, in my hometown in India, there is a temple of Mahalakshmi, and it's a huge temple, massive. It was built with massive boulders, and then there are a lot of pillars, and it's right in the middle of the city. And in that, um, people tried to make the drawings and the architecture of that, and then they tried to count the pillars of that temple. Until today, people couldn't. So we can see how advanced Vedic science was at that time. And the purpose of Mukhya Ved, which is Char Ved, four Vedas, Chaturved, and or the Upaved, was supposed to be using everything for the service of the Lord. And Ashwatthama here hasn't followed that. So Dronacharya, going back to the little bit of a history, Dronacharya acquired the complete knowledge of Dhanurved and everything. He was a proper disciple of Lord Parshuram. Obviously, when he was gaining the knowledge. Who was his classmate? Maharaj Drupad. And in that Gurukul. And we know the story of Drishtadyumna and how Draupadi appeared and everything. So we can see the background here that Draupadi knew the quality of Dronacharya. Draupadi knew very well that Dronacharya and her father, Drupad Maharaj, they were rivals, and he has insulted Drupad Maharaj by, or we can say back and forth, the whole exchanges between them, Dronacharya and Drupad Maharaj, and that is how Draupadi and Drishtadyumna appeared in this world, from the fire. And despite of that, Draupadi is such a refined personality. If we see her language, the way she speaks, and her composure, as well as her perfect consciousness in any situation, the what Lord says, the qualities of devotees in Bhagavad Gita, we can actually examine all the qualities in the personality of Draupadi. Amazing, such absolutely grand personality. And in the eyes of Draupadi, there is a version of Mahabharata called Yajnaseni Mahabharata. So the Mahabharata, what usually we read, is written by Vyasadeva. Yajnaseni Mahabharata is written by Vyasadeva, but it was narrated by Draupadi to Subhadra, and then it was obviously with the transcendental vision, Vyasadeva came across that, and Lord Ganesha, he said, you can write that, and that's how it is written. It is not that famous for various reasons, we can see that, but it's very sweet. And the qualities of Arjun, Draupadi, and everybody from the eyes of Draupadi are written in the Yajnaseni Mahabharata. She talks about herself as well, and she always very, very humble, very meek, but at the same time following her duties properly. She's extremely intelligent. She's very scholar. She knows about the Shastras perfectly, but at the same time, she doesn't lose her temperament. She very composed. So great personality. So, and that's what this particular section where we are discussing about Draupadi here. So let's go through this purport, and we will discuss few things, and then if we find time, then we can discuss few stories about Arjun and Draupadi. Let's see. So Dhanurved, or military science, we spoke about Dhanurved, which is a knowledge of archery, knowledge of weaponry, was taught by Dronacharya with all its confidential secrets of throwing and controlling by Vedic hymns. It's very important to discuss here. There is everything is actually a sound vibration. As per our Vedic literature, the creation of this material world is also through sound vibration. For example, when Lord Brahma, I think all of you know about the chakra. So we have different chakras in our body. Muladhara chakra, Manipur chakra, Anahata chakra, Vishuddha chakra, and all other Ajna chakra and all other chakra. So in that, when Lord entered the Muladhara chakra, Vishnu, in the body of Lord Brahma, and when he started moving upwards, so Lord entered in the form of Vedic sound. And then when Lord came to Vishuddha chakra, which is here, and then uttered the first, and then he started, Lord Brahma started saying certain Vedic hymns, and he started uttering different words. And then Goya, when he said, when cows, the idea of cows was created in the material world, which is obviously a reflection of the cows from the spiritual world. What's the verse we can refer to here? Anyone can remind me the verse, which gives us an understanding of what's the reflection um, of the spiritual world, of this material world is. The 15th chapter, first verse of Bhagavad Gita. That verse is Urdhvamulam ashwatham prahuravayam chandansi yasya parnani yastam veda savedavid. So Urdhva means up, Mula means root. Um, Urdhvamulam adhashakam, adha means down. Shakha means branches. So upside down tree. Ashwath means the banyan tree. Ashwatham prahuravayam, and it has all the massive canopy. Chandansi yasya parnani, the leaves of that tree are Vedic hymns. Yastam Veda Savedavid, and that is the description of the. That's how the world is. That's the Vedic hymns which are representing this tree. Why it is upside down? Because Vedas are not needed in the spiritual world. That is for us to understand. And here, while creating this Vedic sound vibrations in this upside down tree, which is our material world, so the same concept of cow came here in the material world. The same idea of man has to, or the human being has to be created. And then Lord Brahma uttered the word Ashrigham. So what that means is somebody who has a lot of blood, and here we all are. We have a lot of blood in our body. It's flowing constantly, and we have all other things as well, which are quite obnoxious. So that's what human beings are created, and then demigods were created, and many more. So that's how the whole material world is created. And here, the secrets of throwing and controlling by Vedic hymns. So that means it's a sound vibration, correct? So through the sound vibration, the whole, if the material world is created, that means the control of the material world, the manipulation of matter has to be done by sound vibration itself. And that's where Prabhupada gives the details here. Gross military science is dependent on material weapons. But finer than that is the art of throwing arrows, the arrows saturated with Vedic hymns. That means the arrows are what do you call? I'll tell you an example. When in India, when there is a Upanayan Sanskar, when you get that sacred thread, my father, when I was 8 or 10 years old, he said that anyone can wear this sacred thread, but this particular thread, I'm giving it to you now. Now he put it on my body, and that time he said that this sacred thread is with mantra. It is not an ordinary thread, so it has its power because of the mantra. So everything, if the sacred thread is become sacred because of the mantra, that means you can empower an arrow with the mantra, and that's the Vedic hymn, and it comes from the Dhanurved, which act more effectively than gross material weapons like machine guns or atomic bombs. We'll come to this interesting part of how machine guns and bombs were created, or who came up with this weird idea. The control is by Vedic mantras or the transcendental science of sound, and that's what we are discussing. How that science of sound comes, how that is used. So, if everything is created by sound vibration, that means the properties, how the connection between the different material aspects like Prithvi, Aap, Tej, Vayu, Akash. Prithvi means earth, Aap means water, Tej means fire, Vayu means air, and Akash means ether. So all the material elements can be controlled by Vedic hymns, and you can change the connection between different parts of this matter, Prithvi, Aap, Tej, Vayu, Akash, by connecting with the mantra, the Vedic sound, and that's what this Veda means knowledge, and that's what this all the Shruti mantra. Shruti means by hearing. Smriti means by remembering. So hearing is always constant. Remembering the mantras and how to implement that can take place according to time, place, and circumstances. I think a couple of discussions back we have talked about it, so we won't go into that now. So he could pierce his target with his arrow by only hearing the sound without seeing the object. Maharaj Dashrath we are talking about. Oh, okay, I think I missed it. The control is by Vedic mantras or transcendental science of sound. It is said that in the Ramayana that Maharaj Dashrath, the father of Lord Sri Ram, used to control arrows by sound only. Arjuna also had this skill. He was also empowered without looking at the object, just by in a complete pitch dark, he could fire the arrow just by listening to particular sound. And so we'll go ahead. He could pierce his target with his arrow by only hearing the sound. And we know the story of Shravanbar. He was filling up the kamandalu because his blind father and mother, they were thirsty, and he was taking them for the yatra, for the pilgrimage. And that time, because of the sound of that kamandalu, of that pot, it sounded like some animal, like a deer or some other animal, is drinking water. And Maharaj Dashrath was practicing his skills by doing the shikar, by practicing that archery, his act of archery in the forest. And he fired the arrow, and because of that, Shravanbar, that young boy, he got killed. But before he died, he told Dashrath Maharaj, yes, it is my destiny, but my parents are thirsty, so you please give water to them. So Dashrath Maharaj went there, and then I'll tell this very quickly because it is going a little bit of diversion. So Shravanbal's father was a sage. He was a very, very powerful sage. And he said, yes, it is all destiny. We all know that. That nothing happens just by chance. It's a providence. But now you are also going to, now we will die, because our only hope for us to live in this world was our son. But now our son is gone, so now we will leave our body as well. But before that, because you should not suffer more, that's why I have to curse you. So look at the refined personality during those days. They were actually the well-wishers of Maharaj Dashrath, and they said to Maharaj Dashrath that his father, Shravan Bal, is his father, that yes, now we have to curse you, because then only you will be free from this sin of Putraghat, means you have killed our son. So you will also die because of Putra Viyog. Viyog means separation. So because of separation from the son, you will also, you will lament and you will die. And we know the story that because of this curse, Kaikeyi banished Lord Ram in the forest, and then Dashrath Maharaj couldn't bear that separation. But this curse was a benediction actually, because that time Dashrath Maharaj did not have son. And when Dashrath Maharaj's uh, Kula Guru was Vasishtha Muni. So when he said that this particular sage has cursed me, and then Vasishtha Muni said, yes, but that is a benediction as well, because you don't have son. And we know the story that he performed the austerities, and then all the sages, Angira Rishi and everyone came, Narad Muni and all, and they performed Atri Rishi as well. And they performed the Yagya, Putrakameshti Yagya. And from that, a pot of sweet rice came, and it was distributed among the three queens of Maharaj Dashrath, Kaushalya, Sumitra, and Kaikeyi. And yeah, it's going a bit. The story is I'm telling bit in detail, so we will just cut it short. And that's how the four sons, the original personality of Godhead, Lord Ram, his immediate expansion, Lakshman, son of Sumitra, and because Sumitra received two portions of that sweet rice, so another son was born, that was Shatrugna, and one portion was given to Kaikeyi, and then Bharat was born. So Lord Ram, then Bharat, then Lakshman, and the youngest one was Shatrugna. And then obviously when Kaikeyi used that special benediction from Maharaj Dashrath, and that's how Lord Ram went to the forest. And so Vasishtha Muni said that's a benediction, but at the same time, this benediction has actually worked in favor of Maharaj Dashrath, because when he left his body, what he was saying, he was constantly chanting and remembering is Lord Ram. So not to take birth again. So that is a benediction given by sages. When sages say something, this is a curse, usually, not usually, it always works in some favor. They say certain things in such a way that person gets higher understanding, higher realization, to go closer to our eternal abode, going back to Godhead. So he could pierce his target with his arrow by only hearing the sound without seeing the object. So we will discuss that. So this is a finer military science than that of the gross material military weapons used nowadays. Yeah. So nowadays, as Prabhupada a lot of times mentions in his lectures that and in the purports, that nowadays what the main focus is on the Agni Astra. Agni means fire, Astra means weapon. So all the weapons we are using now are based on the principle of fire. But as we just discussed, that if you can make the connection between different gross material elements and change their behavior, that means not only the Agni Astra, but there can be different type of weapons. For example, when Arjun was cursed as a eunuch by Urvashi in the heaven, and not because Arjun was lusty, but Arjun was looking at her because Urvashi was from the lineage. Urvashi's son was, I think, Urvashi was married to one of the ancestors of Arjun, and then Bharat, and then all the. That's why in Bhagavad Gita we can see son of Bharata. I need to do a little bit more research on what that lineage is. So Arjun was looking at her with that awe and reverence that she's one of my ancestors. And then Indra thought that Arjun liked her, and then it was a misunderstanding. And when Urvashi said, "Okay, come with me," and then Arjun said, "No, you're like my mother. You're from my, I'm from your lineage." and then she cursed, and Arjuna begged forgiveness, and then that he lived as a eunuch when he was in incognito. And we know the story that when Duryodhan started attacking Virat, because there were a lot of cows and a lot of wealth in the Virat Nagari, and that time Arjuna fought, and then he was recognized that how Arjun fought. The first two arrows Arjun triggered, one went right at the feet of his beloved teacher Dronacharya, and second went to his beloved grandfather Bhishmacharya, and then they recognized that he's Arjun. But currently he's dressed as a eunuch, and that's but at that time Arjun fired one weapon called Nidrastra. Nidra means sleep, Astra means the weapon, and the whole military of Duryodhan, they were in deep sleep. Only two people, they did not sleep. Who were they? Dronacharya and Bhishmacharya. So look at so why we are discussing this bit here, because the fine science of Dhanurved teaches you that what kind of sound vibration that arrow will resonate, so that except two personalities, others will sleep, and they will be in a deep sleep. Obviously, as per the Vedic injunctions and the standards, a person who is sleeping, you can't fight with that person. So Arjun was not killing anybody at that time, and the whole military was defeated eventually. So this is Nidra Astra. So we are talking here only about one type of Astra, and this missiles and fighter planes and atomic bombs and all sorts of things. That is just based on one principle, that is Agni, fire. So finer here, Prabhupada is telling us that so this is a finer military science than that of gross military science, military weapons used nowadays. Arjuna was taught all this, and therefore Draupadi wished that Arjuna feel obliged to Acharya Drona for all his benefits. So we just discussed about one of the astras, Acharya Dronacharya taught Arjun. Dronacharya had very, very special affection. He loved Arjun. In certain references, it is said that he loved Arjun more than his son, his Ashwatthama. And Arjun was always hesitant to fight against Dronacharya, because they had a very, very special relationship. When Dronacharya was killed, Arjun was very morose. He was extremely sad. And Draupadi knew about it quite well. So she says here, and it was Dronacharya's mercy. And in the absence of Dronacharya, his son was his representative. So look at such a perfect consciousness, that such immense respect Arjun had and love for his teacher, and she's reminding him. So we are always obliged that this is his son and this is a representative. Father is always represented by the son, and that was the opinion of the good lady Draupadi. It may be argued why Dronacharya, a rigid Brahman, should be a teacher in military science. Now, we spoke about one of the verses from Vedanta Sutra, and then it has appeared in Skanda Puran. Janmana jayate shudraha samskara dvija uchyate. Vedabhyasa bhavet vipraha brahma janati brahmanaha. So, by birth, everyone is Shudra. By perfect following certain rituals, rules, regulations. The person develops the refinement in the character, and that is a samskara. Samskara dvija uchyate, and that time the spiritual master, the teacher, gives the sacred thread, and they, with the mantras, they start teaching, and that's how the boy starts learning perfect Vedic science through the Shruti Shastra, and then when that person is very learned scholar in the Vedic studies, then it is time to practice. So they're supposed to perform the austerities, that humility, and we talked about how they follow by begging the alms and everything. So that is the Vedabhyasa Bhavet Vipra. Abhyas means to study. Veda means knowledge. By this, when the person does that study, they do the complete proper study, the methodical study of all the Vedic literature, they become Vipra. And then when they practice what they have learned, Brahma Janati iti Brahmanaha. So that after practicing, they get that higher realization. The person becomes incredibly powerful, not only in the skills, but they develop a lot of higher realizations. They automatically get a lot of siddhi, the mystic powers, and that time the person who has understood the necessity of renunciation and staying away from sense gratification, learning way and living very austere life, that person is eligible to be a teacher. What is the verse for the in the Updeshamrut, in the Nectar of Instruction, where a person, how he controls his senses? What are the austerities? Can anyone remind me the verse? The first verse of Nectar of Instruction. That's the clue. Okay. Vacho vegam, manasah krodha vegam, jivha vegam, udaro apastha vegam, etan veganyo vishahet dhiraha, sarvam apimam prithvim se shishyat. So, 6 urges, a person who can control that. Vacha means to speak. Manasa, the urge of the mind. Krodha, the urge of the getting angry. Krodha vegam. Jivha vegam, the urge to eat. Udara, the means to eat palatable food. Hunger, the control of hunger, that is udara, and the lusty desire, the sexual desires. That is these are 6 things. If the person can control and focus on Vedic studies, that and becomes very scholar and realized in a Brahmadnya, that person is called Brahman, and then he is allowed to become a teacher, and he can have disciples. So that's what the reference is here. So obviously, if the person has learned all the skills, Vedic skills, he can teach anything. That person can teach the Vedic science, that person can teach how to live materially, and that person can teach the spiritual science as well. And here Dronacharya has become expert in the archery, and he is teaching this science of weaponry in his Gurukul. And Prabhupada is saying that the reply is that the Brahman should become a teacher regardless of what his department of knowledge is. A learned Brahmana should become a teacher, a priest, and a recipient of charity. A bona fide Brahman is authorized to accept such professions. So yeah, so we were told in our childhood that there are what are the different types of Brahman. So I did not understand anything when we were told that. There is a, for example, Deshastha Yajurvedi Madhyana Shakhiya Brahman. So what does that mean? So people who have their Gurukul little bit away from the on the plateau, that's where they are residing usually. Deshastha Yajurvedi, they are the followers of, or they are experts in Yajurvedi. Madhyana Shakhiya, that means their teaching slot is usually not in the morning, but in the afternoon. Hmm. There are Madhyana Shakya, there are Pratah Shakya, there are Sandhya Shakya. Pratah means morning, Sandhya means evening. So there are different types of Brahman. So that's what the slots were given to different Brahmanas. What type, what is the sound vibration? And uh, for example, let's take the example of Gandharva Ved. If somebody, if some personality is expert in singing, then at what point of time, what kind of sound vibration should be sung? For example, there is a rag called Yaman. It is the Yaman rag has a um, specific pattern, and in that pattern, um, the sa re ga ma pa dha ni sa are the 7 notes, and in that ma is tivra. So ma is said as ma. That you have to stretch it a little bit. So and it starts with ni re ga ma pa dha ni sa sa ni dha pa ma ga re sa. So that's just one of the ragas. Yeah, and you can change the intonations and tune, and then the whole mood changes. So when the teacher is teaching that raga, automatically the mood changes. You can compose the song accordingly. So in the same raga, you can have either, you can change the um, emphasis on certain um, uh, tunes or certain notes. For example, if somebody is using ma and ni more, that becomes little bit towards the mellow down, maybe sometimes bit of a sadness if you use ni more. But if you use the prominent notes like sa and pa, then it becomes more of a vibrant, more of a romantic type of ra. So like that, there are 10 third. That is just a Hindustani classical. Then if you go towards the South Indian, then there are 52 third, and there are thousands and thousands of ragas. So that is just a sound vibration. And I heard in my, when I was young, from one of my teachers, that uh, because it is avartan, it's a repetition of that of certain notations, and that if that repetition is based on the mood of bhakti, my teacher used to tell me that a person who is singing, if they have that perfect mood and they have that dedication and they have that love and humility, and if they are singing about the offering to the Lord, um, about certain delicacies, and so the whole idea of offering that the naivedyam to the Lord, and then he has accepted it, and the person actually tastes what that person has offered to the Lord. It is all subtle. Means, what I am trying to tell all of you here is, we think that the taste is just by eating, but that subtle science of sound can give the taste if our senses are tuned properly with the sound vibration. And it's the same applicable um, with for our nostrils. If somebody is singing the tune which describes certain types of fragrances, and that person is just um, repeatedly singing that, and he is offering to the Lord, the your senses gets tuned in such a way that person will start smelling that fragrance. For example, if somebody is talking about jasmine or some sandalwood or chatushma. Chatushma is a combination of sandalwood, is a base, aguru, which is also called oud, saffron, then aguru, saffron, camphor, and musk. When you combine that together, and you're supposed to mix it properly in a pistol mortar, and then that paste is applied by Yashodamai to the Lord when she gives him bath. So that's in rose water. So when somebody is singing that melody of the Leela, they can actually smell that Chatushma, those fragrances. That's how the beautiful, subtle science of sound vibration is. And I think from this purport, this is what we can understand how powerful the sound vibration, how that is used for the weaponry. When the person studies that and uses their intelligence for the service of the Lord, um, how the senses get refined and how the personality becomes in a right composure, as we can see in the case of Draupadi. His Holiness Shivram Maharaj writes in his amazing book, the series called Navraja Mahima. I read some time back, there is a place in Vrindavan called Gandhasthali. And even today, if somebody goes there and starts meditating on the pastimes of the Lord, uh, of the fragrances, you can actually smell the fragrances even today. That's what Maharaj has said. Of course, our consciousness needs to be tuned and little bit refined for that. Need to be refined for that. So that's what I thought of discussing with all of you. If there are any questions or comments, please go ahead. And is there any?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you for a wonderful class. Prabhuji, I have a question. I've asked a similar question before. I don't know whether it was you or somebody else, so apologies if it's a repeat. But we didn't really get a proper exhaustive analysis of it. So a couple of questions here. In terms of this particular section, Prabhupada is reasonably disparaging about Draupadi's analysis of how she her treatment of Aswatthama, saying that this is her weakness as a woman, etc. And it's kind of, he's a little disparaging about her sentiment towards her. Also, we see, from what we learn, that if your guru is instructing you in a way which is material and not taking you towards Krishna, then one needs to think carefully about those instructions as to whether one should execute those or even reject the guru if the guru is effectively falling away from Krishna consciousness, if you like. So here we know Dronacharya had used essentially his disciples to enact a completely material, selfish act by attacking Drupad, so in order to take his kingdom for his own selfish purposes or his son's selfish purposes, as an act of vengeance. And then later on, we see in the gambling scenario where Dronacharya again acted not righteously as one saintly person should have. He didn't speak up anything. And yet here, Arjun and Draupadi, etc., still essentially giving him that position of Acharya. So there is a concoction of, and then of course Krishna's own instructions are he should be killed because Shastra says, he's not a Brahman, he's a Brahman Bandhu, and he's acted in a heinous way. So everything is contrary here. And yet the actions, we glorify the actions, although they're actually against the Shastric injunction. So how should we read some of this?
Okay. So obviously, there is no justification to what Ashwatthama has done. That's clear. But at the same time, the Varnashram Dharma, the social order, needs to be respected, and that is the samskara of Draupadi, Arjun, and Pandavas and Kunti Devi, given by Kunti Devi and all the from the lineage.
But that's the whole point, Prabhuji. Pramanasha Dharma dictates here that in this instance, he should have been killed because that is the dharmic principle of justice.
Yeah. So I agree in logical perspective, but at the same time, Lord is giving the instruction. He is testing Arjun here that he should be killed, but at the same time, if Draupadi is saying that he should not be killed, and Draupadi is a devotee as well as she's a beloved wife of Arjun, and if she gets displeased because she has her desire is not obeyed, is not followed, that is not correct, because as per the Vedic injunction, husband is supposed to take the decision together with wife, not on his own. So that's one thing. Of course, Arjun's friend, his spiritual master, is giving another instruction, and there is a contradiction, and that's where Arjun finds the mean, and that is the glorification of the devotee of Draupadi and Arjun both. In terms of the Dronacharya's act, what he has done is, again, there are different dimensions we can look at it, or different what do you call areas of in terms of the Shastric injunction. One thing is, yes, Drupad has insulted him, and that is the karmic reaction he received, because if he has given a word, he was supposed to respect Dronacharya, because he was under illusion that he's the controller, he's the superior, and Dronacharya is a pauper. So that was the mistake. In logical terms, I'm talking about, in a materially logic, if material logic we are thinking about. And that's the lesson, that's the karmic reaction he got. Obviously, half of that kingdom was belonged to Ashwatthama, and then that's how he started thinking that he's also a ruler. But again, because consciousness-wise he was degraded, so he again considered Duryodhana as his master. So he went to again Shudra consciousness. So, but again, devotee is not supposed to be judgmental, that whether his consciousness is degraded or not, and that's what Draupadi's example is, or Arjuna's example is. So Arjun, Draupadi, Yudhishthir Maharaj, they're all the refined Vaishnavas who have that compassion, who have that rational thinking, everything. And that's logically, if we try to put this jigsaw puzzle together, we will have loads of questions keep coming one after another. With my little pea-sized brain, what I can think of is, whole Mahabharata is a drama composition by the Lord himself, and that's what Kunti Devi confirms in her prayers, that she says that Maya Javani Kachandam Agnya Adhokshajamovyayam Na Lakshase Mudha Nato Natya Dharoyatha, that you are the you are the director of this drama, you are acting in there, you are the observer, you are everybody, and we are just puppets. So that's basically the bottom line of that particular prayer is. So these are all the personalities who acted in that drama to teach the lessons of the devotion. The bhakti is the only crux, the only thing which will give us the clear understanding, and that is why Mahabharata can be read in three ways. First is the Shabda Bhashya, just literal logical understanding of this happened, cause and effect type of thing. Second is a Guhya Bhashya, which is a hidden meaning of how Mahabharata is all composed. And the third one is a Samadhi Bhashya, which is in the eyes of Bhakti, Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena. So as our consciousness gets refined, we will have higher understanding of what we should learn from it and what our actions should be. If we try to understand that everything in a purely logical perspective, we will have more and more confusion. That's what I can say here. Is that okay, Shailesh Prabhu?
Yes, thank you, Prabhu. I was intrigued because
Yeah.
the indications by Prabhupada's purports are quite clear, and they're quite disparaging in terms of what actually transpired. He's not supportive of what's going on. I mean, he's indicating that this was a weakness, not a strength.
Yeah, the whole idea of what Prabhupada is giving us here time and again um, is this whole Lord's Leela is to bring us closer to Him on the path of bhakti, on the mood of Sharanagati, the surrender. And if we keep reading his purports, we will find that undertone in every single purport there, and that's what my understanding is. That's the answer we can think of, because logically, definitely, the whole Bhagavatam we will try to understand in terms of logic, chronology, and cause and effect, and cost benefit analysis, and all that modern economic theory or something. Mm, I don't think that will work if we try to think in terms of the jigsaw puzzle like that. As soon as we think in terms of the bhakti and the path of surrender, then everything will start making sense. We can join the dots there, and that's what Sripad Jiva Goswami writes that in all his literature, whether it's a Bhakti Sandarbha, Priti Sandarbha, and everything. And obviously, in Rupa Goswami says that in his literature as well. In fact, all our acharyas. Yeah? Okay.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. So, there is a question. If sound can affect our senses of smell and taste, can seeing things have the same effect too? Yes. Seeing things. Now, if we try to examine our senses, a Lord says in Bhagavad Gita that our senses are imperfect. So, just by one sense, if we try to understand everything to gain the complete knowledge, that won't be possible. I will give you an example. A lot of us have experienced COVID recently, coronavirus. So, when we lost our sense of smell, the flavor of that food we lost, and that time even the same food was there with the same what you call the same prasad, we could not taste it properly. It's because our senses are interdependent, and still those are not complete. So sound affects our senses, yes, because sound is the most important sense. When a baby is born, the first before birth, what baby the sound, the sense which is refined there is a sense of sound, and the last sense which disappears when person leaves the body is also sound. So that's the most powerful sound, powerful sense, which is our ears. Seeing is based on a fire. So um, uh, sound is giving us, because the creation is through the sound, that is why all our senses can relate to the sound of smell, taste, and everything. Seeing has a limited capacity, and but still, just by looking at something, we can imagine what kind of taste it must be, or what kind of texture that food has, or what kind of if we see the musical instrument, what kind of sound that musical instrument will make. So that, but it has a very limited capacity. If we hear from somebody, that what this is, it gives us lot more understanding of what that object is. And it's not the same effect, but yes, it gives some understanding of the objects. So that's what my answer is to your question. I don't know who has posted it because it says iPhone. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Any other question or comment? Or if not, then it's already 9 o'clock, 9:01. We can stop here. No question? Okay. Thank you, everybody. We will meet again, if not next week, maybe later. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha.
Baca
Patitanam
pavanebhyo
namo
vaishnavebhyo
namaha.
namo namaha.
Anantakoti
Ananta
Vaishnavi.
Jai.
Thank you,
Thank
Prabhu.
you, Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Thank
Prabhuji.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for the
Thank you
wonderful
so
class.
much.